Introduction.
The Ottoman Empire began as an insignificant principality and grew over time into one of the largest empires in history. At its height, it ruled over much of North Africa, Greece, Eastern Europe and parts of the Middle East. As such, it was a major player on both sides during World War I, 1914 to 1918. Only after World War II did the empire finally start to decline. By 1923 it had lost almost all its territory outside Turkey itself when Mustafa Kemal Ataturk abolished his government's right to rule anywhere else.
The Ottoman Empire started with one man.
The Ottoman Empire started with one man, Osman Bey. He was a Turkish leader who founded the Ottoman Empire in 1326.
The rise of the empire happened quickly.
The empire was founded in 1299 by a man named Enrico Dandolo, who was elected as the first sultan. It was initially a small territory but it expanded rapidly and soon encompassed large parts of Europe and Asia. During its peak, the empire ruled over a vast territory and had millions of people living within its borders, a truly impressive feat. Dandolo ruled over this vast territory like an absolute monarch. No one else had any authority besides him. He could make laws at will, he could raise taxes at will, etc.
Some members of the royal family joined a secret organization dedicated to maintaining true Islamic principles because they saw the empire as moving away from its religious roots.
The Janissaries were a military force created by the Ottomans in about 1389. The group was made up of Christian boys who were taken from their homes and given training in the arts of warfare, then sent back to their communities to serve as elite warriors for the Ottoman Empire. However, they didn't always follow orders from the Sultan and often abused their power. In addition to being disloyal soldiers, many also neglected their religious duties because they didn't believe in Islam or any other religion at all. Some even converted back to Christianity after being forced into military service. Despite these problems with loyalty and faithfulness, or lack thereof, there was still something special about these men when it came time for battle. They were very strong fighters due to years spent training under strict discipline, something that couldn't be said about most other armies around this time period.
One night in 1595, a young man who was part of this group decided to murder a grand vizier and seize power for himself.
The young man who did this was part of a group known as the Janissaries. The Janissaries were a secret society that had been formed by this group's leader, who was also the Grand Vizier, the most powerful man in the empire. The Grand Vizier's daughter was married to Sultan Selim III, and they had a son, Murat IV. The night after his mother died, Murat IV became Sultan. With his father still alive and serving as Grand Vizier, Murat IV sought to have him murdered so he could take over power himself. He enlisted some friends in his plot. They belonged to another secret society called the 40. They worked together with other members of both groups and killed several high officials before finally murdering their real target, Bazım Mustafa Pasha, a member of the 40. This allowed Murat IV access to great wealth and power that had previously belonged only to his father. However, it didn't last long. His reign lasted only 2 years before he died from gout at age 22.
The people and the government were unhappy with him as sultan, so he was dethroned after less than 3 years and executed.
This event happened in 1481. The people and the government were unhappy with him as sultan, so he was dethroned after less than 3 years and executed.
His nephew took his place, but had a hard time in office and was eventually replaced by his brother-in-law who wanted to be sultan more than anything else in life.
The nephew of the previous sultan, Mahmud II, took his place and had a hard time in office. He was eventually replaced by his brother-in-law who wanted to be sultan more than anything else in life.
He proved himself an effective leader before dying several decades later without leaving any sons to succeed him. This led directly into a power struggle within his family that threatened to tear apart everything they'd built together over many generations.
The founder of the family, a man named Jerubabal, proved himself an effective leader before dying several decades later without leaving any sons to succeed him. This led directly into a power struggle within his family that threatened to tear apart everything they'd built together over many generations.
This man would go on to become known as the lawgiver because he instituted many reforms aimed at modernizing government and society while also creating new laws designed specifically for governing his extensive domains in Egypt, Syria, Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and areas around them.
This man would go on to become known as the lawgiver because he instituted many reforms aimed at modernizing government and society while also creating new laws designed specifically for governing his extensive domains in Egypt, Syria, Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and areas around them. In addition to being a great military leader, he was also a religious leader who strongly believed in monotheism. He sought out converts from other religions while banning them from entering his territory where they would be subject to punishment, including death. As a result of these policies, Judaism became the primary religion within his empire while Christianity spread rapidly throughout Western Asia during this time period. It is believed by some scholars that this man may have been responsible for writing parts or all of several books within what we now know as the Old Testament, including Deuteronomy and Exodus.
Conclusion. I hope you enjoyed reading and listening this history of the Ottoman Empire. It's a fascinating subject, and there's much more to tell than what I've shared here. If you liked what we've learned so far, let me know by leaving a comment or reaching out via social media so we can continue our journey together.